2. This is the way. Independent media and voices is the way. It's not the future, it's now. That's Jamie Kennedy, by the way. Everybody's got a million reasons to blow your brains out with Ricky Warden. That's me. And Dave Jarvis.
That's me.
Against all odds, Ariel and Jeff joining us tonight. Everybody, we have a special evening lined up for you with the one and only Ian Saint. Before we get going and I turn it over to our host, I want to invite everyone to participate in the show in the comments tonight. I will be engineering and making sure that all your comments are part of the show. All right, so thank you for being here, everyone. The brilliant, incredible, and genius host, Dave Jarvis.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Today is October 4th, the year of our Lord 2023. I would like to thank our guest coming on, Ian Saint. He's coming from a different time zone. I just figured that out. I will be studying more about time zones here in the near future. But I got to say, Ian, your resume reads like my childhood wish list. You are a correspondent for NPR, PBS, through WOUB, and you're a Deep Ellum radio podcaster. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I have not really done a podcast before. Deep Ellum Radio is a digital, or it's an internet radio station. That's where I got started in broadcasting, and they do stream 24/7. And so I've been asked about doing a podcast. But we'll see, maybe one day if it's the right, format. Podcasts are a little hit or miss, in my opinion. There's been some really cool people that have taken off with podcasts, and I love that. There's been a lot of terrible people platformed by podcasts too. So,
well, welcome to one of the terrible ones.
Yeah. Put us in that category.
Yeah,
Good
right.
to have you.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you very much for breaking your podcast cherry with your boys and your girl and blow your brains out. So, yeah, dude, I've been a lifelong NPR fan, all things considered, World Cafe, Fresh Air. What's it like corresponding with them? Do they tell you what assignments to do, or you just report back to them?
So I freelance. So I will pitch things to my producer, Emily Vota, who, I'm very grateful for giving me a shot with this. What actually happened was my now producer had interviewed me because PBS was airing an episode of Classic Albums featuring Fleetwood Mac's Rumors album. And she was looking for a younger fan of theirs, someone from a couple generations later. And I fit that bill. I had actually seen the Rumors lineup live in the brief window that they were reunited. And it's kind of funny because Christine McVie left Fleetwood Mac, I think, in 97, which was, before my time. And it took her like 18 years to finally join the band again. So they did this big tour, made a big deal about getting back together. But then after that one tour, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham had a falling out. Lindsey was kicked out of the band. So there was a very narrow window that I managed to see the Rumors lineup of the band. And unfortunately, Christine McVie has passed away. So that, that opportunity is no longer. But anyway, so she interviewed me and we had a really, really great discussion. And then I wound up being an interviewer. There were a couple of opportunities that had come up that I'd sent her way. One of which was Jefferson Starship was coming through. And I had a long history with the Jefferson Airplane and Starship family. Met Grace Slick a couple of times, interviewed Paul Kantner for Deep Ellum Radio. Actually, Paul Kantner I interviewed him shortly before he passed away. I think I might have been his last radio interview because he was in pretty. I mean, God bless him. You know, he had a heart attack already when I spoke to him, and he couldn't stand, you know, during the shows. But he kept going until he expired. So
That's cool.
anyway, she asked if I wanted to do the interview, and of course I'd love to, and it went well. My first interview actually, so I was, they were doing a festival, Jefferson Starship, and the other headliner was Terry Clark, the country artist who just was inducted to Canadian Music Hall of Fame. She's a member of the Grand Ole Opry, and she's the one I wound up spoken to first. And it just went on from there.
Wow. Very
that?
cool. Very cool. Yeah, man. I've read some of your stuff. The interview with Shirley Manson is very cool, and I'm very happy to. I inferred from what you wrote that you're a big Noel Gallagher fan, Oasis fan.
Well, I am a fan. I'm a pretty recent fan of theirs. What wound up happening with that is, so I I put in for interviewing Noel Gallagher. He wasn't available, but his really kind publicity team had arranged for a review in lieu of that. So I covered that show at Dos Equis Pavilion because they were, you know, I do live in Dallas. I'm split between Cleveland and Dallas. I live in Deep Ellum.
Cool.
So Dos Equis Pavilion is very close by. I just walked there, which is nice because the traffic jams are pretty gnarly. But it was actually the photographer for that review, Isaiah Cunningham. He's a huge fan of Oasis. Like, Noel Gallagher is one of his favorite songwriters. He had a "Live Forever" tattoo on his arm, and
nice.
yeah, it's kind of serendipitous because Noel, what he was doing with this tour, you know, he's got his own band, High Flying Birds, and so the first half of the set he does all their material, and then he switches to Oasis. But it was only like 5 or 6 Oasis songs, and one of them happened to be "Live Forever." And actually, all the Oasis songs he did were ones where he sang lead, not Liam. But the one Liam sang song that he made an exception for was "Live Forever," and that's the song that Isaiah had tattooed on his bicep.
It's a beautiful song. I love that song.
Yeah, so Isaiah was with me. He shot the show, and you know, I figured that they would have him shoot from the soundboard, but they actually had him in the pit. So he was right in front of, you know, one of his songwriting idols, you know, Noel Gallagher, because Isaiah's a singer-songwriter himself.
That's always so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, so Isaiah's a singer-songwriter himself, and Noel's one of his favorites, and he was, you know, right in front of him, and, you know, Noel was, you know, playing for his camera and stuff, so it was very surreal. And then, of course, Garbage followed them. They were great, and shout out, too, to the opening band, Metric, who actually have a new album coming out on 30 Tigers. I've been in touch with 30 Tigers on Friday the 13th.
Ooh, where are they from?
Metric's from Canada.
Ah, okay. Cool, cool. A lot of great talent has come out of Canada over the years. People forget that.
Yeah, well, you know, like I mentioned, my very first interview was Terry Clark, who she and Shania Twain came around the same time. They're both from small towns in Canada that came out, oh gosh, you know, around 94, about that, 95. Shania, of course, did the pop rock crossover and then, you know, blew up on a massive scale, and Come On Over is the greatest selling female album of all time. But Terry really kept it country, so she didn't really have that same crossover success, but she had, you know, number ones on the country charts and everything, and you know, she was inducted to the Grand Ole Opry, and now she's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. So yeah,
So
I agree
cool.
with you. I mean, in my first interview for NPR was a Canadian
Very cool.
country legend. So.
They have a better music system in their schools there or something.
Well, I would say that they their public institutions are generally, you know, better funded whether it's education or, you know, certainly healthcare, health insurance and the like. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, they just turned out a lot of good musicians, so there's
They
something
do.
better about their music education.
Maybe, you know, I don't know too much about it. But it would be interesting, you know, to find
Maybe
that
it's just all those cold nights and beer and
out.
Since a good song somewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
well, growing up
Yeah.
in Cleveland, you know, we share Lake Erie with Canada, and I was in London. Actually, I went to a couch surfers meeting, and a guy from Toronto could tell I was from Cleveland because of my accent, and I was really shocked because he said the Toronto accent's very similar, except little things like they do say about, they say organization. So there's like little inflections, but beyond that, it's actually quite similar. And you know, growing up, we could go to Canada very easily because you didn't need a passport. I don't think that started till 2008. So I forget that a lot of people.
When you say London, you mean Ontario? London,
No,
Ontario.
London in the UK actually.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I forgot, you know, like when I moved to Dallas, and you know, people would ask which countries you've been to, and I'd say, well, of course I've been to Canada, and people are like, well, I've never been there, and I forget, you know, Canada's really far. But Cleveland's very
but
close.
it's not from Cleveland.
No, and when you didn't need the passport, you know, you could go in and out, you know, lickety split. It's a little more complicated now, but not as much as coming from Dallas.
I really loved your review of the Willie Nelson Government Mule concert.
And John Fogerty.
Yeah, that is so cool. Just as someone that was able to see Creedence Clearwater Revisited, you know, for free, I was like, man, I would totally pay to see John Fogerty to get up on this stage right now. So, what was that like? Like, I know you like ran through a lot of the greatest hits, but you know, it's one thing to hear it on the radio; it's another to actually feel John Fogerty sing to you. What's that like?
Yeah,
Hold on a bayou.
Yes. Well, I'm going to revisit that song in a second, but I've wanted to see John Fogerty since I was a teenager. And, you know, he's certainly, you know, well before my time, but coming up in the 2000s and all the wars, you know, that emerged and the rampant, I would argue, sort of blind nationalism that emerged in the wake of 9/11, and you know, the kind of dubious justifications for the Iraq War. John Fogerty was very outspoken about it. You know, at a time when there was a lot of backlash for doing so. You know, we saw what happened with the Dixie Chicks. I think John Fogerty had the benefit, at least, of, you know, at least being, you know, known for a long time of opposing, you know, questionable wars, as he had done with the Vietnam War. But he was very outspoken at that time, and I was of the opinion that the war was a bad idea, and it was a very unpopular opinion in my community back then. I think, you know, now I feel.
Oh, believe me, it was unpopular here too.
I can imagine in Texas it certainly was. Yeah.
Yeah.
George W. Bush was actually very so popular in my community, and I talked about this with Shirley Manson, that his he was campaigning for re-election. He had a presidential campaign rally at my high school gym. So, you know, me being so opposed to the war and everything didn't really, you know, it wasn't a popular take, but I wasn't really popular in a lot of ways growing up.
Freak.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, I've wanted to see John Fogerty for a really long time, and it was very interesting because the lineup, you know, Government Mule, featuring, you know, featuring Warren Haynes and Alan Woody, rest in peace, from Allman Brothers Band, and then, you know, CCR, and then Willie Nelson. I was like, well, gosh, that I don't see a ton of continuity there. And I saw that at River Bend Music Center in Cincinnati. So for those who don't know, Cincinnati is on the Ohio River. The Ohio River is the border between Ohio and Kentucky. So much of Metro Cincinnati, including the Cincinnati airport, is actually in Kentucky. But this amphitheater is very, very similar to Dos Equis Pavilion in Fair Park,
Gotcha.
except for being on the river, and the river's behind the stage. So it's pretty cool. And something that I realized during the performance was that all three of those bands performed river songs. So Government Mule did Banks of the Deep End. Their new album that just came out is Peace Like a River. John Fogerty opened with Up Around the Bend, and then Born on the Bayou, the song that you'd mentioned. Green River, actually. It was Green River and then Born on the Bayou. And then his last song was Proud Mary, which is
Keep on burning.
Yeah, the song about the riverboat queen. And then Willie came on and opened with Whiskey River. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool. It kind of goes back to how, rivers have been so essential to human life, and how many, civilizations have sprung, from rivers, not only in this country and in terms of, post-colonial cities, but also indigenous tribes, that relied on the river. And then, going back to Egypt, which I was in Egypt 2 years ago exactly. I was in Egypt.
Really?
No kidding.
Yep. So everything, along the Nile River, and so it was pretty cool, to see that these
Water
seemingly
is life.
disparate bands, had a common threading with the, those river songs, and it's interesting to see how that resonates with, people of all styles.
I gotta tell you, Ian, you are a natural at this. Isn't he, guys? He's
I was
pretty
gonna
good.
say
The river is the common denomination.
He doesn't need our help at all. He could just be given one subject and just you're off, man. I love that. That's awesome.
Well, it's a little bit of a struggle for me because I'm so used to being the interviewer. So it's out of my usual seat being the interviewee.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
we
you
appreciate
feel
that.
as comfortable as possible while we make you feel uncomfortable.
Well, I've interviewed both Donnie and Marie Osmond at different points,
Saw
and yeah, I get nervous before every interview, actually, to this day.
Especially puppy love.
Yep, we talked about that. But with them, I got especially nervous because whenever somebody's been interviewed, like I'll look at past interview clips and I see, okay, they've been interviewed by Oprah, Larry David, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, all the goats of broadcasting. Obviously that's very nerve-wracking to me because I don't want to ask cliche questions and things of the sort. But with Donnie and Marie, they have been the interviewers themselves, as well. They've been interviewed by all the legends, but then they've
Talk
also
shows.
Yeah, I mean, they had the variety show, of course, in the 70s, but in the 90s, they had a talk show where they interviewed, Little Richard, Grace Slick, the Judds, and Little Richard actually is the only one I haven't.
They're about as professional as you get in this entertainment business.
Yeah. I mean, so they know both sides of the coin very well, and so the pressure I put on myself was even greater.
Yeah.
Because of it. But they were both cool. In both instances, they were very fun to talk with, and they both invited
So cool.
me and my family to meet them,
Wow.
at the show. So
Yeah, most definitely.
Wished I had applause sounds, because that's super
Right.
cool.
No, yeah, we're working on it. We're trying to improve every week.
yeah, it's funny. I noticed my teeth apparently are thrown off the green screen.
Yep,
I didn't realize
it's
my teeth
catching
were
it
that white.
sometimes.
It's okay. You still look good.
Ian,
Now,
how long does it take you to prep for an interview? Because I know you said that you try not to ask cliche questions. So how much research do you put in? How long does that research normally take you?
Well, something that takes a lot more time than I think people would realize is the pitching. Pitching to the publicist or manager. Sometimes they don't have a publicist; it's just a manager.
Lining up the interview.
Yeah, and actually, to me, that's harder you know, trying to, because my brain, I mean, as I've shown in conversation, you know, I can springboard very easily, and I guess shoot off in directions that, you know, aren't everyday
Pivot.
conversation topics,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
trying
We
to,
love the pivot.
yeah. Well, thank you. I actually had a really funny interview with Paula Poundstone where she talked about that, how like just her ability to find interesting things to observe in the most mundane stuff is kind of what powered her career as a comedian. And she is
Oh yeah,
very,
she was great.
yeah. But it's harder for me to try to get my, you know, to get something, you know, concise in an email, and the email, you know, I can't use intonation and expressions.
Inflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would
Nuance
say
is dead.
mm-hmm. So I would say that's, you know, the hardest part. And because we interview people from all different generations and genres and backgrounds, you know, I customize it, you know, for each one. So that can be what's actually very time consuming, and I think what a lot of people would underestimate, and definitely one of the you know, least enviable aspects of the work, you know. And I would say one of those things where, you know, people, I think it's easy to see the curated, you know, edited interview and be very envious of that work, and it is cool, you know, it's cool to put that stuff out, but there's a lot of grunt work that, you know, if you had to do it, you might not think it's worthwhile. And I would say the pitching fits the bill. So as far as when the interview's secured, my interviews for NPR, for WOUV, typically, you know, about 20 minutes, sometimes 30. So I can come up with questions pretty easily, and I never can get to them all, to be honest. And there's always stuff that transpires during the conversation where that might.
Yeah. I guess it's better to be over prepared, for sure.
It is over prepared.
Yeah. So what I do,
that's what makes you better prepared for those instantaneous, you know, conversations that might not would have otherwise happened because you were prepared.
Right, you train your brain.
Did you guys recall there was an MTV News series like in the middle of the 2010s, like 2015 to 18, something like that, called Decoded.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, the host Francesca is a Twitter friend. You know, we haven't met in real life, but we follow each other on Twitter, and she's brilliant. You know, Decoded is no more, but she's still a great writer and actress. She actually just talked the other day about this, and I so wholeheartedly agreed with her. She said, you know, if you want to be a podcast host, interviewer, etc., she highly recommended taking improv classes. And I actually did that in the year leading up to me going into radio, which I didn't know I was going to go into broadcasting at all. I just, you know, Deep Ellum had the Dallas Comedy House, and I've always enjoyed sketch comedy. You know, I was really into Matt TV growing up, and I'd had some friends on Matt TV. Deborah Wilson is an original cast member that's a very good friend of mine.
I've pulled up that Decoded on the screen here, Ian.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah, Francesca. Oh, it's a shame that, well, it's a bunch of trolls that I think brought down the rating, because I thought she was brilliant, and she still is.
There you go.
Yeah, so 2015, I don't know how many years it was on. I would say probably like 2 or 3. But she still puts out, you know, TikToks and things in the style of that. And so I agree wholeheartedly with her advice of, you know, taking improv classes will really help. So for me, what happened with Dallas Comedy House, you know, that was in Deep Ellum, which I live in. And I wanted to go into sketch comedy, and they didn't really have that at the time. It was a little bit nascent. But they had improv, and so I was like, okay, and, you know, I did that. And So when I started with Deep Ellum Radio, I was on a talk show with 3 other people from different phases of my life that had never met ever, didn't know each other existed. I'm jumping around a little bit, so I'll try to make it coherent. But
you're good. This is good content.
Yeah. So I did the improv classes. They had 5 grades, I guess. And it wasn't a semester. It was like a, what do they call them? Phase, maybe. They had 5 phases, I think, before you graduate.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't make it through all the way.
The 5 phases of improv.
Yeah, I think I got to level 4 of 5, and I would have been happy to finish, but I'd gone to Brazil where I had to leave it for a little while, and then by the time I got back, I had the opportunity with Deep Ellum Radio that I was really interested in, and I just didn't have time to do both. But so
ambitious and adventurous. I love that.
That's actually a good characterization. Thank you. I'm gonna have to pocket that.
My pleasure, brother.
Dave Jarvis.
Yeah. So okay, with Deep Ellum Radio, what happened there? So I did. They had all music shows, and Kim, the owner, was interested in having some talk radio, and I sort of visualized concept for various reasons that are too long to get into. One of which actually was when I was in Brazil, and I would encounter questions about why things were happening in America. As this was late 2013, so it was like when Ted Cruz had become senator and he had done the green eggs and ham thing, and government shut down and blah blah blah. blah, blah.
I still can't believe that was real.
Yeah, well, welcome to the club. And I'm actually Beto O'Rourke is a good friend of mine, and
oh yeah, that was a cool picture. Yeah,
came so close to unseating him, but anyway, so I'd get a lot of questions in Brazil about America and why things are happening as they were, and Brazil, unbeknownst to me, was going through shifts of its own, shortly after that, which is why, we saw the election of Bolsonaro, who thankfully has been unseated, and things like that. So it's actually quite interesting to reflect on that, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. So with Deep Ellum Radio, I had this vision of a show sort of in the style of The View. I like the concept of The View. I haven't watched it in much in many years, which is not me hating on it.
So you mean like multiple guests?
Well, multiple panelists of different backgrounds. I kind of took it further.
Panelists. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's sort of one of the panelists is a moderator, which I guess was me. I was the one that had spearheaded the show, as Barbara Walters had done. Barbara Walters, it was her show, and she was one of the panelists, and they would have discussions on topics, and then they would also have guests to interview. Yeah. And I always loved that premise. So shout out to Barbara Walters. She's actually, I've learned a lot from her. Rest in peace. She recently passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eon, thank you. You're welcome, Eon Saint.
There you go.
Man, so with all this globetrotting and speaking on political issues, it seems like you're searching for something loftier. Are you trying to be like the new Walter Cronkite?
Well, so I guess I'll finish what I was saying about the premise of the show, because it answers your question. That's a great question. Thank you for that. I visualized me and 3 others. I think 4 is a good number. And it was people of different backgrounds, different races, different professions, different ages, different genders. So the lineup wound up being myself, Breon, who is Black and gay, and phenomenal musician. She went to college with me in Cleveland. She's from Dallas. Went to college with me in Cleveland at the Conservatory of Music at BW. And when we graduated, I moved to her hometown of Dallas. So she was one of them. And then there was Missy, who was a hairdresser in Irving, who was a little bit older than my parents. And she, was.
Oh yeah, guys. Oh yeah. Everybody needs a Missy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get that.
No, don't worry. We're all old over here, except for Ariel. Ariel's young, but we're all old.
Youngin.
Oh. Well, that's our relative anyway.
Thanks for that.
It's okay. You need an old voice every now and then.
Well, and then Mana, so she was, like baby boomer. And me and Bree were millennials. And then Mono is Gen X. I met him at Dallas Comedy House. He's really, really good at improv. He does it all the time to this day. He's brilliant.
Is that the little place over off of Commerce?
So it was on Commerce, and then they moved to Main Street, and then they moved to Elm Street.
Bounced around. Okay.
It's
Yeah, I
Dallas
remember.
Comedy Club now, right? Or
That's
is it-
right. So
I love that
Amanda,
place.
yeah, Amanda Austin was the owner, and man, she, I just admire her in so many ways. She had so many headwinds, and she, had to keep moving, and comedy is dominated by men. And, so I could go on and on about her. I admire her a lot, but COVID happened, and they just couldn't, they just couldn't overcome it. So she sold, she ended Dallas Comedy House very heartbreakingly. And then fortunately, new owner stepped in and made a Dallas Comedy Club. So
Nice. All right. Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
And so Mano, he's, Latino descent. And he doesn't speak Spanish because when he was growing up, his mom was so sensitive about him having an accent and, the discrimination that could come with having an accent. And she regrets that now because she realizes, the value of if he had been bilingual. But anyway, so that was our sort of hodgepodge. And what I thought was really interesting was, and we had really great chemistry. Thankfully, the first time we met, because again, all three of them had never met. They didn't know one another existed, and I just hoped they'd get along. Unfortunately, the first time I got them together, it was like instant. Like we had really, really good chemistry. Kim, the owner of Deep Ellum Radio, was there, and she approved the show. She knew it was kind of a gamble for her. And what I thought was really interesting, going to your question, was, sometimes we would, all four of us would agree. Sometimes it would be 2 and 2, and it would be interesting to see what was the split. Was it the women and the men? Was it the younger folks and the older folks? Was it along racial lines? Was it, all kinds of factors. And then sometimes it was 3 against 1. And sometimes all four of us were in disagreement. But at the end of the day, we were having fun with one another. And I thought that was refreshing.
Oh, dude, it's always great to disagree, but still remain friends.
Yeah, well, so this was 2014. And it was right sort of when we started at the beginning of the year till the end of the year. 2014 was a very meteoric year. And we were talking about CCR, in the 60s, like I think the 60s, like the early 60s and the late 60s. Very strong contrast. And I would argue probably the 2010s, was the strongest contrast between the beginning of the decade and the later part of the decade. Politically and in all kinds of ways. And that year, 2014, from the beginning to the end, you had Ferguson, you had Ray Rice, and the elevator video that opened the door about domestic violence. You had Michael Sam, came out as gay and then was an active NFL player. So and then that was also the year that Mitch McConnell became Senate Majority Leader, and that sort of altered, the decorum we were just talking about in politics permanently, with all the stuff with the Supreme Court justices and stuff. So 2014 was a very fractious year, I would argue. And it was very interesting to have a show like that at that time.
And it was the year that Jon Stewart announced his retirement. He retired a year later, but he announced it in 2014.
Yes, I actually, I saw Trevor Noah's program in 2016 because the RNC took place in Cleveland, my hometown. And so the Daily Show moved to Cleveland for a week, and I got to attend one of the tapings, and I really enjoyed it. But, what's funny is that in 2014, our talk show actually got to speak with the Cleveland Visitors Bureau. I don't remember the exact name of it because Cleveland was in the running for the RNC. It was one of 8 cities, 3 of which were in Ohio: Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, the big 3. And Cleveland was really lobbying hard for it because they knew, so much had happened in Cleveland in recent years. Like, so much of the infrastructure downtown had improved. And a lot of people have misperceptions about Cleveland based upon either never coming here or having not been here in a really long time. A lot had happened since the Cuyahoga River had, set fire, which led to Earth Day and so on. And so even though, there was a Democratic mayor, they lobbied really hard to get the RNC to come to Cleveland. And so I actually interviewed for Deep Ellum Radio, the Visitors Bureau, in the midst of that being one of the 8 cities, and they wound up getting it. But it's so interesting because in 2014, I think that their expectation was that the nominee would be someone like Jeb Bush. They had not, the notion of Donald Trump being taken seriously was like not even a notion back when they were lobbying for it in 2014. So it was interesting to go there in 2016 when he became the nominee and was, threatening riots and things like that. So the security was very heavy, so it was interesting to be, on the front lines of when they were, jockeying for this and to see what was happening, in those 2 years where things just changed so drastically.
Yeah, the last time I went to Cleveland, it was like 2006, I think, and it was a friendly little town.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because 2006, I remember a friend of mine as a teenager, a friend of mine needed a ride, needed to be picked up from the Greyhound station, and which is on Chester Avenue, and I drove out there, and I just remember thinking like, oh man, and like Chester had a sort of a reputation for being, rough. And I was just like, oh, but since then, so much has changed. Like Cleveland State University has really, like when I was going to school, it was mainly for commuters, I think, but they really invested in like campus and people living on campus. And if I were, looking at colleges now, I'd want to go to Cleveland State in a heartbeat. I would not have gone where I went, I think. So a lot has changed. I would say in the last, pretty much the last decade, a lot's changed in Cleveland, like around 2012 or so. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out and all of our prayers sent to Crazy Bone from Cleveland, who is currently battling for his life right now. So that really sucks. Bone Thugs was a huge influence on me. I don't know what Cleveland thinks.
We're proud of 3-6. Absolutely, yeah.
Bone Thugs, but it's okay.
I'm sorry, 3-6 was
Bone Thugs.
Yeah,
it is an hour later over here.
That was Memphis, but that's cool.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes, I'm sorry. It was Bone Thugs. That's embarrassing. Delete that.
It's cool. It's cool. There's a lot of great music that's come out of Cleveland. The Black Keys, Devo, man.
Well, Rush.
Dave Chappelle, of course, but he's not musical. But he is an artist. We respect the shit out of that.
So the band Rush, they're from Canada, but Cleveland was the city in America where they took off. WMMS 100.7. They were the first station to play Working Man. and it just really took off here. So
Badass.
yeah, so we Cleveland has had a lot of music talent spring from here. Trent Reznor, with 9 Inch Nails, that I think Pretty Hate Machine was
Head like a
recorded
hole.
here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then Cleveland. So Cleveland's like smack in between Chicago and New York, which is why my accent. I people ask if I'm anywhere from St. Louis to Massachusetts. It's kind of funny, but we're smack in between Chicago and New York City. So that's where the Midwest meets the East Coast, and so a band like Rush, even if they're not from here, Cleveland, could be a launching pad. So I liked growing up here because of that.
Does Cleveland have a Deep Ellum-esque music scene?
So that's why I was drawn to Deep Ellum. It's funny you say that, is because it reminded me so much of Cleveland, with the industrial background. And, Deep Ellum is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year, because a lot of Dallas-Fort Worth is not, Dallas-Fort Worth. How long have you guys been in DFW?
30 years.
58.
Okay, so you've probably seen a lot change.
Oh, yeah, man. I kept Deep Ellum alive in my own little way multiple times.
Yeah, well, just the Metroplex alone. We were talking about Missy, growing up in Irving. She's lived there her whole life, and she remembers, when they were building DFW Airport, and how, she remembers when Las Colinas became a thing. Dallas-Fort Worth has changed so drastically, and it's grown at a crazy rate. But Deep Ellum is one of the, places where it's been what it is for a really long time, and has an industrial background, and there's still industrial businesses there, manufacturing and things of the sort. So it reminded me a lot of Cleveland, and that's one of the reasons I took to it instantly.
Cool.
I don't think I would have stayed at Dallas if it weren't for Deep Ellum. And I like Dallas fine, but Deep Ellum, is...
So do you have homes in both, or do you just stay at one and then you relocate randomly?
I lit, like, my home that I bought is in Deep Ellum, and my family is in Cleveland, and I've got a big Irish family, so no shortage of...
So you always got a couch to crash on. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so your family's back in Cleveland. How are they doing?
Great. My grandparents are my surviving grandparents are 93 and 91. They still live on their own, still drive. I flew up on Friday, and Grandpa, the 93-year-old, picked me up, and
Wow.
we went to have Mexican food, which is interesting. But, they're in their 90s and they can still have chips and salsa. So that's, that's what I want to be when I grow up.
Damn right it is. Gives you a lot to hope for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did your love of correspondence come from them?
So actually, you mentioned Shirley Manson. My grandma is from Scotland. She was born in Glasgow in 1932. She, grew up during the war. And, we were talking about John Fogerty earlier, and, my feelings towards the war, to her credit, Nana certainly was an influence on that, because she grew up, during World War II, and they actually had to move to Edinburgh because the Nazis were bombing Glasgow. Glasgow had the shipyards and things, so it would get targeted, for the infrastructure. So, my grandma, it totally disrupted her schooling and everything when she moved to Edinburgh, but she wound up going to the same high school as Shirley Manson. So that was how I kicked off that interview with Shirley, was Nana going to Broughton, just like Shirley did. And actually, as it turns out, Shirley's grandma was a teacher there. So it was pretty surreal, because when I was growing up in Brecksville, the town I told you about, there was a music store where this was like 96, 97. And I vividly remember the Garbage album poster being up there and just being so captivated by it, because it was just so, unorthodox to see a band voluntarily calling themselves Garbage, especially with a girl. you know, like a pretty girl as its singer, and yet they had the pink flowers and everything. So it was very pretty yet really ugly at the same time. And I just, you know, I would just stare at this poster, and so it was very. And I told her this, you know, it was very surreal to be speaking with her all these years later, and to have my grandma, you know, from Scotland, who, you know, went to the same high school as her, contributing a question. She wanted to know about Broughton, you know, all these years later, um, was a pretty cool full circle, you know, thing. But
Cool.
yeah, so Nana, you know, would talk about, like, you know, Americans don't really have a real concept of war because we haven't had war on our soil, you know, apart from isolated attacks like Pearl Harbor, since the Civil War, you know, and nobody from back then is still alive. And, you know, speaking as somebody who, you know, had to hide in the cellars and things as these warplanes would fly overhead, and it was terrifying, you know, that she said, you know, you shouldn't be flippant towards war because you really have, you know, it's easy to romanticize it and to not take into consideration how awful it is. So yeah.
Dude, you are
but it was fun to
you are a fascinating guest, I must say.
What's that?
Hey, I'm going to break in here. Speaking of awful, I want to tell everybody out there, my host here, Dave Jarvis, and Ariel and Jeff, y'all be careful. This storm is hitting us really hard right now.
Yeah.
Ian, Dallas is getting hammered right now, hard, all the way from Abilene to the other side of Dallas.
So
dude, I can't even see the street, man. The rain is coming down so hard.
Which parts of DFW are you guys in?
I'm in South Arlington.
Okay.
We're in Forney. We just started getting the rain, and our power goes out a lot. So if I black out, I'll be gone.
Means you drank too much.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm bringing up the weather map right here just so Ian can see it real quick. See, Dallas is kind of in the center. It goes all the way up into freaking Arkansas and out to Abilene. Yeah. You know, it's a giant system there. And we're in the red right now. All of us are. I'm in Alvarado down here. He's in Arlington. They're in Forney. I guess it already went through Forney.
No, it just started.
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm in Deep Ellum, so I'm like southeast-ish Dallas. Actually, it's Central Business District, but it's the southeast part.
It's getting hammered. It's getting hammered down there right now. So shout out to all our friends and loved ones in your house.
What I've noticed with the storms is that they always come from the west, it seems, and they blow like northeast, which makes sense because of the jet stream. But I feel like Tarrant County gets hammered pretty hard, and then it kind of goes up to Denton County. Like, I feel like generally Dallas County does not.
You are correct because of the concrete is what it is, I believe, the heat. But right now, Dallas, Deep Ellum is getting hammered right now. Yeah.
Well, and of course, climate, you know, is becoming more predictable.
It's just a big storm, man. It's just a big storm right now. But I think that the reason I'm a house painter, and so I've always had to be able to, you know, wear multiple hats in every profession. So I have to be able to forecast the weather to be able to paint an exterior home that takes 3 or 4 days to paint. And so I've noticed the same thing, that it breaks up over the whole Metroplex, actually, if you watch it. But Dallas being on the, you know, on the far end of the concreted Metroplex, a lot of the storms burn out before it hits Dallas.
Were you guys, okay, so a week and a half ago, it was 2 Sundays ago, there was a really bad storm because I was in Americana Fest for, in Nashville. I was in Nashville for Americana Fest. See, I get things swapped, just like I did with 3-6 Mafia and Bone Thugs.
It's all good.
It's late. But coming back from Nashville, we were about to descend, and they came on and they said there's a really, really bad storm where there's a tornado, and it's directly over Love Field Airport, and we had to go into a holding pattern. I mean, we did 6 revolutions in this holding pattern.
I remember that.
Of this bad storm. So were you guys on the ground for that too? It was like a week and a half ago exactly.
Yeah, it didn't hit us too bad out here in Forney, but when there was like a giant strike of lightning and a very loud like boom right overhead, right as I was walking outside to go grab my water, and like all the power in our community went out.
Yeah, it was an amazing lightning storm.
It was
I don't
very
think
loud, very
this-
scary.
This time of the year isn't particularly...
Was it Sunday?
Yeah, it was 2 Sundays ago.
Yeah, that's the one. It was an amazing lightning storm. I watched it roll in.
Yeah, it was. I saw it.
There was a rainbow for a few minutes. Did you see the rainbow? There was a rainbow for a few minutes.
No, it was after dark when I did it. So, but that sounds cool.
It was an amazing storm. I just happened to be in a spot. Honestly, I was listening to part of the Dallas Cowboys football game. That's why I know it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I was parked. I was taking my tokes before I go into the gym at 24 Hour Fitness. So I've got a great vantage point to watch the storm come rolling in. So I took advantage of it.
Okay. Yeah, it was about 9:30. We didn't get rainbows, and the lightning was cool. But, the holding pattern was not great for me because we were going clockwise and I was on the left side window seat. So, like, when they would turn, I was, like, the highest up. And so when you just keep doing that 6 times, like, lopsided, it wasn't fun. It was a relief.
I'm glad you made it home safe.
Yeah. So how long have you guys been doing this?
Well, Ricky's been doing the podcast for a couple years now, right?
Not really. I'm
No?
more just kind of... I did it by myself, Ian, for a few shows, and I did a couple of things. Like, one thing with this channel on YouTube, it was not monetized, but I've had the subscribers for a long time. Because I started this video channel 15 years ago, and I've interviewed a lot of bands, including War, and just a bunch of fun bands. Got
That's
a
awesome.
lot of great times. They're all captured there if you ever want to go watch them.
I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, what happened was I just saw the technology of StreamYard one day. I was actually following a guy that does Whole Foods, and he's actually the Texas, if you want to look up wild edible foods, he's the Texas forager. That's what you call him in Texas. So he's the main guy. And anyway, so I saw him, and I, for whatever reason, was on YouTube and on my phone at the same time. I was on Facebook on my phone and YouTube on my television, right? This is a couple of years ago. I'd never been part of that kind of technology, or I just found myself sitting there and saw this guy doing a show where people were commenting on his show on YouTube and on Facebook. He was able to see their comments, bring the comments up on the screen, talk to them about it, and build a little community. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, I know what to do with that,
That's interesting. I've never done. I've done live streams for political interviews, like during the Beto campaign, the Senate one. I had done that a handful of times with a co-host, but like Deep Ellum Radio, we didn't really do live. It was pre-recorded, and then NPR WRUB is always pre-recorded. And we did now Deep Ellum Radio. We did do shows with live audiences. Did you guys ever go to Wits End in Deep Ellum?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
played there, did gigs there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's where we did all our live shows. It was really cool, but it was eye-opening too, because I would meet people that knew who like things about me that were kind of personal that I had shared, and I didn't know them. So it was an adjustment,
The power of the internet.
That's kind of social media too, though. I'll never forget the first times I went out and hadn't seen someone in a couple of years or whatever, and they were telling me, "Oh man, that show you were at the other day was great, man." And I'm like, "Well, you weren't at the show." They're like, "Oh, I saw the pictures on Facebook." Remember that sensation? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm no star. I just have a lot of friends, and so I had a lot of people coming up to me. Now, this was 4 or 5. What is this? 10 years ago now. But the original Facebook sensation, where people would come up to you and talk to you about, experiencing things together that they hadn't experienced together,
Yeah.
except for Facebook. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, Facebook, when I joined, it was, I was a teenager, and it was only for college students, or, high school as well. You had to be in a school network. Like, you had to have a school email.
When you joined Facebook?
What's that?
When you joined Facebook?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's why we all flocked to Facebook, because we were having a problem with MySpace being infiltrated by parents and faculty. So we loved having a platform where it was only for, young people in school. And you couldn't have parents creating accounts because they didn't have the school email. So that was the whole appeal. So it's really quite striking, to see that Facebook has kind of turned into Boomer Book, because it was like the complete opposite.
Boomer Book? What do you mean? They're fixed to just elect the new president. Shit.
And I still like Facebook. Like, I think it has the best balance as far as, the different functions and things, but the demographics have definitely changed quite a bit. Like, my teenage cousins don't do Facebook at all. Like, they don't even have accounts.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. But my grandpa, who's 93, is on it. So, and he's older. He's got boomer kids. So.
Hey, y'all. Good to see you boys' pictures out there.
Yeah, he doesn't really post. He just glances on occasion, but he's on it.
That's your dad, yeah. My husband's dad does that.
That's how they keep up with you. My mom straight up told me that. That's how I keep up with you. I was like, man, I hated doing it, but I deleted her the next day. I was like, sorry, Mom. I am so sorry.
Well, my
Isn't that
parents.
horrible?
How dare you?
No, I don't.
Well, I don't want to. I wouldn't have used Facebook. I'd have been like, oh, my mom's gonna. Oh, well, my mom. Yeah, I didn't want to be thinking that every time I thought about posting something or making a comment on Facebook.
That's understandable. I mean, I get along well with my
And
parents.
I hope it is. My mom's passed away now, and it doesn't matter. But my point is that it has to be, because in that situation, it was her fault. She didn't have to tell me. Sometimes it's the words that you put into people's ears.
Fair enough. So Rick, you started this all those years ago that you mentioned. What brought this permutation of folks? Like, how long is this?
Well, music, just my love of music. Before this, I used to DJ on KNON here locally. I did a metal show on KNON back in the day as a kid. And so I've also done multiple magazines. I did a magazine called The Skull Press back in the day. I'm 58 years old, Ian.
Okay.
And so I did all that basically before I raised my kids. And then my kids grew up and I started bands. So I did a couple of bands. And then I had things happen in my life like everyone else that prevents me from doing those things. And so I just needed to do something. I don't just sit around too well. So I started, and the reason I started this StreamYard the way that I did was because that's what every other show host that I was watching, that's what they were saying, was just start your show. Just start it. You just had to start it. Doesn't matter. Take what you got and start your damn show. So that's what I did. And then that brought David Jarvis, and then Ariel, and now Jeff, and you. So here we are all together having a good time.
So how long have David and Ariel been doing this with you?
David's been about 6 months or something.
Oh, okay. So fairly recent.
I've been here since like November.
Okay.
That's okay.
I mean, I started as a guest, but then I was like, hey,
Look
can I
at
come
there.
back? I kept coming back every week. They can't get rid of me.
For a while I was over guest, man. Like, Dave, are we ready to celebrate our 1 year anniversary yet? You're like, it's just, I started in November.
Yeah.
One more month.
But look, now we're actually coming up on a year.
Yeah.
It's October.
And honestly, I feel like the three of us have really begun to gel lately. So that really feels good. It's very gratifying to come back every Wednesday and meet such interesting people such as yourself, brother.
Well, thank you.
And have a format to do it,
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, do you do the monetization?
Yeah, but I don't make any money off of this channel. And what I can, go ahead.
Well, because the only reason I ask is because I feel like, I mentioned, like, how podcasts are kind of hit or miss, as far as the quality, and, there's been some really cool people that have emerged from it, but there's also been really terrible people platformed, and unfortunately, I think the people that are in it for the money, the winning formula, if you don't have things like good contacts, or where you can get bigger guests, or something like that, is to be incendiary. And I see it all the time, on Twitter and whatnot.
Hey, well, let me go back then to my other story I didn't really tie up, just so that is that the reason I wanted to get it monetized was because I felt like it would give me better placement in YouTube search results. I didn't want to get it monetized because I actually thought I would make money off of it. Now, I would like to. I'm not, sitting there saying I'm not that, yeah, who wouldn't like to? But no, I don't do this to make money. I don't expect to. If I had more time, I would commit more time and energy and money to it. Maybe we could turn it into something a lot bigger and better,
Yeah.
But it's like that.
Well, and
we're celebrating culture.
Yeah, no, but and so what the reason I asked was because I had a feeling, it was what you had said, and I think that is what makes it a quality program, because
yeah, thank
you're
you
in it for the heart,
That's it, 100%, like Bill Hicks, 100% from the heart.
And you never know who will take notice of that, where maybe they can big roll something. So I mean, I didn't anticipate, being able to contribute to WOEB, or that I still, even things like I have to do an annual training for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and every time I see that, I just think of being the little kid and seeing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting thing, after Mr.
Pretty
Rogers.
wild, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was something where, and you know how that started. I told you the Fleetwood Mac story, but I just saw a post on Facebook, where Emily was looking for that younger Fleetwood Mac fan, and I responded, and I told her, I think I'd be a good candidate because I got to see the Rumors lineup, and it just went on from there. So my point being, you never know, but thankfully I had all that experience, because Deep Ellum Radio is essentially volunteer. So I was not in that for the money, but I accrued, really, really good experiences that prepared me for when, an opportunity I never could have foreseen presented itself. So.
Well, I put it back on you like I do Ariel and David. It's all about opportunity and having the time to do the things that you love and enjoy, I actually take care of my grandson is what I do with like the majority of my time and all of my money. And so that's my profession is my grandson. That and working, making the money to do it and all of that. And so, I envy you and anyone who either doesn't have children or has a support system for your children so that you can pursue what you love the most. I believe that anybody can accomplish a lot more than what you think that you can if you just do it, and like you said, if it's from the heart, you're doing what you love.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah.
If your love is crocheting, that might get you down at the retirement home with the old ladies, but if your love is music and people, you can get there.
Yeah, and I think that was very well said. Kudos for that. And I would just add, not losing sight of who you are too, because I think it's easy. I mean, I saw this firsthand, when I was starting out with Deep Ellum Radio, and this was sort of when the podcasters were taking off, and people, for the sake of engagement, would, become somebody they're not, or at least compromise themselves, sort of sell out, for likes and engagement and stuff like that, and maybe in the short term.
Well, I'm lucky. I've never really had any of that. I've got a lot of faults, and I'm not perfect or anything, man. But I guess the good and the bad side when it comes as I never really did give a fuck about what other people thought at the end of the day. Do I like friends? Do I like people agreeing with me? Do I like listening to people? Yeah, I love conversation. But at the end of the day, I've never.
Punk rock, baby.
Yeah, you can lose focus. What's that mean, man? I just need to get the guitar and play louder. I need to do another gig.
So what style of music do you play?
Aggressive rock.
Okay. I'm wearing a Megadeth shirt. So.
Yeah, I love Megadeth.
Very
cool. I love Megadeth. That's what I do. I sing and play guitar like Dave Jarvis. Dave Jarvis is a singer, guitar player.
Okay. Well, actually...
So, do you play also then, Ian?
I did. I played bass guitar back in the day. I mainly played piano and percussion.
Cool.
And so in band in school, because I could read, the sheet music, beyond rhythm, I often was assigned, the the xylophone and stuff like that, because I knew, the notes.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Play that because you're the one that can read the music for it.
Yeah. But my very first concert in Dallas was actually at Dos Equis Pavilion, that we talked about before, and it was, the thrash bands were doing the big four shows overseas, like
Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax.
That's right. And so, everyone besides Metallica went on tour, where Joey Belladonna had just joined Anthrax again.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
Big deal.
Megadeth had gotten Dave Ellison back in the band. That was a big deal. And of course, we know what happened all those years later. We won't get into that. But they were doing the Rest in Peace album, which of course is my favorite, and that's the shirt I'm wearing. And Slayer was doing Seasons in the Abyss. And it was one of the last shows that Jeff Hanneman did, before he got his spider bite and just went, down a spiral. But that was my very first show in Dallas.
Very cool.
That reminds me of my gig at Wits End.
Oh, yeah?
That's where I was when we got the news that Jeff Hanneman died. And nobody was really there. And the DJ played Rain in Blood. And so I just started turning over tables and shit. Just having a good time.
You were turning over tables?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they joined in and we all had a great time.
So it was staff.
And what else do you do? No, I just led the crew and they all joined in. They remember me. They don't even remember me for playing shows there. They only remember me for doing the Jeff Hanneman Slayer Rain in Blood tribute.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, Ricky's a leader.
Yeah,
hey, from the heart, man, when you're doing the right thing, the brothers are going to be there.
Absolutely.
Amen.
I know how to turn over a table properly, all right?
Well, in your defense, that's not the worst that Wits End has seen.
Exactly.
I've heard other stories.
I've got a couple.
And then a bunch of horror. So
we've seen some things.
That rooftop. I like to take friends up on the rooftop. I enjoyed it up there.
I don't know. I've been to the new Mechanical Bull place. Like when they like first opened, like it was before their grand opening. They just opened for like the neighborhood people to check it out. They didn't have a rooftop going on then. I don't know if they're going to do. I mean, I would think they would because, you know, that's a great draw. But I don't know. I don't. Maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe they want people to stay downstairs with the pool. Yeah. So
Who knows? That was always my spot in Deep Ellum.
yeah, well, especially because Green Room, you know, Green Room's no more either, and they were the only other rooftop. So, well, that's not true. I guess on Main Street, you know, that like
Well, Crowdus and Elm, like that corner was just kind of always my spot before it was Wits End, you know, way back in the day when it was really Deep Ellum.
yeah. Well, before I moved to Deep Ellum right when Wits End launched. In fact, I helped them. I was at July
Cool.
Alley, and they needed help with getting that front of the ice cream truck hoisted onto the wall, and I helped them with that. But I was
Kick-ass.
there for the Bone as well.
Yeah.
The Bone preceded Wits End.
Wits End,
But
yeah.
I have to shout out Reno's, you know, because we're talking about all these places, you know, and all the cycles, and Reno's has held on strong, and they're on a month-to-month lease.
Really?
Oh
So,
wow.
Hey,
We
you
played
need
at
to be our
Reno's.
Deep Ellum update because we were wondering about Reno's.
yeah, well, Dave, the owner, sold it to Amber, who was a bartender there.
Yeah, okay, really?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, that was within.
Well, how about that, everybody? That's enough reason to go down there and just have some fucking drinks. Tell me Amber didn't take care of you. I mean,
Yes.
that chick has got to be, I mean, she's just one of the best bartenders ever.
Yeah, no, she's, you know, because it's easy to get, you know, carried away, but she's able, you know, she's one of the few people that can ride the balance of debauchery, but not totally,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And be
going off the
professional.
ledge.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
So
Well,
yeah,
congratulations to her. I know she was good to me when I've been there.
yeah, and it's, you know, always good when, you know, because oftentimes when businesses like that are sold, it goes to, you know, some venture capitalist or something. So the fact that it was, you know, sold to somebody who felt, you know, that had worked there a long time and felt strongly about, you know, preserving the identity and you know, who are your clientele and things like that, I think is a good story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
I've got pictures on my Facebook.
Do you? Who took
Oh,
them
yeah.
for you?
I was some drunk at a bar.
Oh, well, God bless him or her. Now, are you flipping tables?
No, I was talking about with Amber. Isn't that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Amber. I've got pictures with Amber on my Facebook page.
Yeah, she just got married recently to Steve.
Oh, this is a while back, so everything's
Okay.
good.
Yeah, she's a married woman now. They got married in Puerto Rico.
All right.
Aw.
And
Very cool.
So yeah, you know, it's interesting which places you know, endure in Deep Ellum and others that don't. Yeah.
Well, again, I'm just going to encourage all our listeners who have all had at least one toast at Reno's. Get your ass back down there. Amber's
Here, here.
running the place. Let's fucking light it up. You got a place to go to in Deep Ellum?
That's right.
They lost their free parking over there. That's really one of the biggest fucking, you know, that street England right there in front had free parking down there. There were always a few places, you know, where regulars knew where to park, you know.
That's true, but what I would recommend is taking Dart. You know, Reno's is right by the Baylor Dart station. In fact, I went to the Bob Seger concert at AAC with the bartender from Reno's, who's no longer a bartender there. But
You can
you know.
park for free at the Dart station in, or is it TRE in Fort Worth? You can park there, take the TRE, and I guess Dart over from there.
There's a
miss
lot of
having
guard
the-
stations where you can park for free
Yeah.
as well. So, in fact, I'm trying to think. Well, like even the downtown Carrollton station, you can take the train, all that way, park for free
Yeah,
up
you
there.
can. I used to live in Carrollton. I used to take the train all the time.
Did you?
Did you ever take it to Reno's?
No,
Mm.
I didn't know that I could. I didn't even
Yeah.
know about Reno's until
You just had to take
That
it to that
person.
good Latterman station, I guess.
Actually, go. So there's a whole history there was going to be a Deep Ellum station that was more in Deep Ellum because the Deep Ellum station that you mentioned on Good Latimer,
Yeah.
past Elm, like between Elm and Gaston, it's kind of in the corner. It's
Yeah.
not that close to. Well, I mean, it's fairly close to like trees and Louis. So like, there's some things, but Baylor station is definitely closer to a whole lot.
Okay. How about that? The inside,
yeah.
everybody.
Well, what happened, I guess, was Baylor, ponied up a lot of money to have a station where that is, and that kind of changed some things. But I mean, if you get off at the Deep Ellum station, it's still walking distance for sure. You're just going to walk a little bit, depending on where you go.
All right. Does anybody who knows who Days X is? Is that Ariel from Against All Odds, the greatest band in history?
that's me.
Hi, Ariel.
I feel
That's
like-
right. Our very own Ariel of Against All Odds.
Awesome.
Were
Greatest
y'all able to finish Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes, we did. So we have this app called Shudder that we just downloaded, and it's supposed to have access to all like horror movies, and it's not just American Made Service. The service is like really bad out here right now. But we just watched the original or rewatched the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and yeah, it was something.
Is that going to inspire any Against All Odds material if it hasn't already?
Oh, probably not. I just like watching scary movies.
Okay.
I'm just gonna be honest. We just watched it to watch it because we like to rewatch horror movies and judge them based on do they stand the test of time. We've got like a whole system called a flame rating. It's silly.
What do you think, Jeff? Do you think it holds up?
Oh my God. It's easily the best vintage horror movie of all time. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, 74, you kidding me? To even be able to watch that at my age anyways, it's awesome. It's still shocking to this day.
How do you think it holds up as far as the reboot from 2003?
I don't know. There's something. I watched the original when I was young, so the remakes are cool. I think the best remake ever of a horror movie was by Rob Zombie. The Halloween remake that he did was outstanding. If y'all haven't seen that,
I agree. I think you and I are alone on that one.
well, number 2 was an atrocity. I don't know what the hell that was, but his remake from when Michael Myers was a kid all the way through, it was a phenomenal watch.
I saw a movie recently. It's either Dutch or Danish. It involved characters from both, and I don't recall which one it is. Let me look it up. But it's called Speak No Evil.
Speak no evil.
Yeah. Okay. So the director is Danish, but it takes place in Denmark and the Netherlands and a bit of Italy. It involves two families. One is Danish and the other's Dutch. But it did really it really disturbed me, honestly. Um,
On a vacation in Toscana, a Danish family instantly becomes friends with a Dutch family. Months later, the Danish couple receives an unexpected invitation. It doesn't take long for the joy of reunion is replaced with misunderstandings.
Ooh,
yeah.
you said that very Vincent Price like. I like that.
Hmm.
So somehow this movie has escaped us since we watch everything. But when it first came out, there was a huge buzz around it, and it was getting a lot of good reviews. So I don't know how that hasn't hit our TV yet, but it's definitely on the list.
So I watched it with my dad. My dad's the one that found it. He is a really big proponent for renting DVDs from the library, the public library. Cleveland has very expansive public library system. So I don't know. Does Dallas Public Library has? Well, I mean, there's Dallas Public. Is there like a cross county library network?
I don't think we have libraries.
Forney doesn't.
I can tell you about the Legal Law Library.
Farmers Branch has a library, so Carrollton uses Carrollton Farmers Branch Library. I think Carrollton just one. Forney doesn't have a library. Terrell has, I think, a library, but it's not as their collection's not as vast as most other libraries are.
Okay, because I know about the Dallas Public Library.
Arlington has a good library system.
So you
Okay.
can rent movies from a library?
Yeah.
I was shocked. I don't know. Yeah, mind blown.
Now, what's most shocking about that? The fact that you can do it, or the fact that they're still offering that service because nobody has the DVD player anymore?
Oh,
No.
we do.
Oh my
We do a
goodness!
VHS player.
So the public library was made for you.
Yes, and I knew about Dallas Public Library, but in Irving, you know, I lived in Irving when I first moved there. Um, but Irving is separate, or at least it was. So I guess where I was going with that is I didn't know if if there were any partnerships between Dallas Public Library and like other districts or
Cities.
counties.
Hey, as long as people read, that's all I care about.
Fair enough.
Days X says they used to rent CDs from the library and burn them so they can put them on their iPod.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for public libraries, I wouldn't have gotten well versed on Twilight Zone and I Love Lucy and great bands like 16 Horsepower or Prong. It's crazy the kind of stuff that you can find at a library.
David, it's so funny you mentioned I Love Lucy because so my family's from Cleveland, but I was actually born in Dayton, Ohio. That's where my dad had a job, and so that's where I was born. And we lived in Chicago for a little bit, but second grade was when we moved to Cleveland, where the extended family was. And I discovered Nick at Night, and I still remember the exact lineup from 8 to 10 was The Munsters, I Dream of Jeannie, I Love Lucy, and Bewitched.
Yeah.
And Lucy, to this day, I would say, is my top comedic influence, for sure. And it's so, the 50s were such a patriarchal time and a very kind of pretentious time as far as the TV and like Leave It to Beaver and stuff like that. But Lucy, in spite of those things, like how they had to sleep in separate beds and things like that, like she was still really funny.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and the
Yeah,
fact that they would have an
hilarious.
interracial couple on
Mhm.
network television was like crazy.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, like a lot of humor has not aged well. I mean, even in recent time. In fact, we were talking about like the paradigm shifts, of like the beginning of the 2010s versus later. When Betty White passed away, I have not gone back to look at her 2010 SNL episode, but I've heard from people like that did watch it, in light of her passing. They're like, they're not her per se, but they're like a lot of the humor really has not aged well, and that was only one decade. So, think about how many paradigm shifts and, things have transpired since the 50s. And yet Lucy has held up so well. I just think, she was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, but the paradigm for uprightness, just kind of shifts, randomly. It really depends on, what the group that's in power really feels like is entertainment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's multifaceted, but I guess when I was watching I Love Lucy, that would have been in the 90s, late 90s, and comedy's changed a lot since then. There's a lot of things on Friends, that I guess just don't, they just don't resonate the same way today. And I guess I hadn't really thought about that. Friends was on, 4 decades later than Lucy, and I gravitate towards Lucy. It's just funny because like the 50s, I don't think I would have enjoyed that decade culturally. But I love Lucy.
Yeah.
Dude,
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say an argument between Lucy and her mother is timeless. Like that argument could happen right now. I told you, dear, long before you ever got married to Mickey Richardson. It was like Ricky Ricardo. She never got his name right. And who can't find humor in a mother-in-law that can't pronounce her son-in-law's name? I mean, that's still funny.
Yeah. I'd completely forgotten about that. But that is funny.
Vita Vita Vegemin.
Yeah. Alcohol, 23%.
Mm-hmm. And the gosh,
yeah, great
really,
stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of physical comedy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the music is a wonderful backbone to what they were doing. Because they were an acting company.
The Babalu.
Yeah. Club Babalu. Well, Ian, I'm sorry to cut you off, bro, but we're coming up at the end of this conversation. Unfortunately, we usually close off at about 11. But I do want to ask you before you leave. I ask this of every one of our guests. Ian Saint, how do you want to be remembered?
Cool question, huh?
It is. Well, I'll think about something like that, but then I'll also think about how, nothing, this world's not going to last forever. Eventually it will be swallowed by the sun.
All right. Send them off with a bang. I love that.
Mm-hmm. So, nothing is permanent and nothing's going to last in memory forever, In fact, one of my favorite poems is Ozymandias. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly because I haven't said it out loud in so long. But it's by Percy Bysshe Shelley. If you want to look that up. But it's about... well, I don't want to do it in injustice, but it's about impermanence, even when you build colossal statues of yourself and things like that. So, I would say somebody who tried to make the most of this life and get out of my comfort zone, but not lose sight of what's right. And I think something going back to what we were saying about the Deep Ellum radio program and that being
and along the way you got some Donny Osmond puppy love.
That's true, but I think I've always prioritized trying to be inclusive, and I did that with the casting of my first Deep Ellum radio thing out the gate, and I always love, hearing from people around the world. In fact, we would get statistics on who was tuning in to the Deep Ellum radio program, and I'll never forget, the shock at Saudi Arabia. I'm like, Saudi Arabia? And then I looked into it and learned that, Saudi Arabia has a very young population and they don't really have much in the way of programming, on the TV. It's government and religious. And so, YouTube had really blown up in Saudi Arabia because it exposed them to something that they couldn't get otherwise. And we weren't on YouTube, but we were on the internet nevertheless. And so the fact that a discussion we were having, which might be forbidden, to conduct on the airwaves in Saudi Arabia, the fact that somebody could tune into that and maybe get something out of it, is pretty amazing. So
There you go. Throw a finger to the man.
well, thank you for the invitation. I'm very touched, by things you had said, and I'm glad you've enjoyed some of the works. There's some pretty cool stuff on the horizon. In fact, I was just talking with a publicist today for I don't want to say too much because I get superstitious very badly, but a pretty remarkable voice in Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. So hopefully it works out.
Well, we are very much looking forward to seeing that. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Saint, thank you very much for your evening and for your time and for your amazing insights and taking us all over the world in this conversation, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and
You've been
likewise
you've
with
been
you.
a wonderful,
I admire what you're
wonderful
doing.
guest.
Thank you.
And please come back anytime you like.
All right. Well, have a good night, and thanks again for the invitation, and good luck in the path
Thank
forward.
you.
Nice meeting
Thank
you.
you.
All.
Good luck with you as well. Have a wonderful night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. All right. So I don't want to end this just now because Jeff, I understand you like some movies, and I would definitely love to talk to you about some movies if you've got the time.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Okay. So I know you've got some lists. All right. So what movies have you seen recently that you would recommend during this Halloween holiday season?
So like Ariel said, we got Shudder here recently. Super horror fan. I mean, we watch everything, but horror's our jam. And they have a bunch of originals like any streaming cast does. And Influencer is one of the first ones we watched on it. And really great, original.
Suspense. It's not really horror, you would say.
Yeah, I guess so.
More like suspense, psychological thriller.
Yeah. But that's the newest one that we've seen, and I liked it a lot.
Do you have any go-tos that you just always return to?
Yeah.
Oh man. Like I said, I have a list from old timey to scary as hell to my favorite series to the cult classics to ones that people may or may have not heard of. Like I said, Texas Chainsaw Massacre has got to be the one that holds up best for me. Have y'all seen the Terrifier when it really blew up, Terrifier 2?
I have not seen any of those. I'm waiting for the hype to die down.
Well, it is the sickest movie I've ever seen as a B-list movie. To not have the monetary behind you to make a movie, but to make it that gross and sick and intense. I thought they did a very good job with that one.
So you like the really bloody, like nasty stuff?
So, I mean, I like everything, but
all right.
The way they did that, because I'll watch anything, right? I always do research, which is funny. Ian mentioned that the Speak No Evil. I had seen that. I had seen the buzz. I don't know why in the hell I haven't seen it yet, but I'm always looking to see what Rotten Tomatoes, the critics, plus what the viewers have said about it. Because if everybody hates it, it probably does suck, right? But if the critics hate it, what the hell do they know? They're kind of artsy-fartsy. But for the most part, if the viewers loved it, it's probably going to be decent. Saw is my favorite series of all time. I know a lot of people fell off after Saw 2. It was definitely the worst one out of all of them. And everybody kind of bailed after that, and they've made 42 more of them. I haven't seen the new one yet, but
we watched them in order a couple of times. Anytime the new one would come out, we'd rewatch them in order.
Yeah, did y'all get into the Saw series?
I saw 1 through 3, and 3 turned me off of it completely, because it's one thing when you are killing people that deserve it, but a lot of people in 3 did not deserve it, and I wasn't with that.
Yeah, we had conversations about that every time we watch it.
Yeah, when old girl had to reach into the acid to get the key, and then they ripped her ribs apart. I'm like, come on, man, that's just gross for the sake of being gross.
Yeah, they were definitely shock value.
Hostel, man, though, and they got you remember that one? That one has the Achilles scene.
Achilles, yeah.
Ooh, it gets me every time.
What did y'all think of Spiral?
Oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah. I told Ariel I had to make notes before this because I'm very bad about what I ate yesterday, more or less. We watched so many movies that I can't remember everything. So, but I remember liking it. And I'm excited for the new one. It's Saw X have got rave reviews, so I don't think they've rated a Saw movie as high as they have this one in a while. So I'm interested to see. And I've always thought they kept you guessing, and the storyline and the ending scenes of all the Saws, where it kind of blows your mind. It's that twist at the end of every single one of them, it seems like, that keep you going.
Yeah, I know a lot of people got turned off when Carrie Elwes turned out to be working with Jigsaw, whatever sequel that was. And, they got Carrie Elwes to get interviewed about Saw stuff, and he was just clearly dismissive of the whole series. It was like, bro, you were in like 3 of them. Have a little more enthusiasm.
Yeah, no kidding. No, mine, the biggest shock to me, and like I said, there's been 70 of them, so who the hell knows which one this was. But when you seen the original Saw was by far my favorite. I mean, I remember 20 years ago talking to guys on the job site going, dude, did you see the guy cut his effing foot off to get out of there? And 15 Saws later, when you see that he cuts his foot off, he escapes, unless you haven't seen this, and I'm spoiler alert. But and he's actually working with Jigsaw, because Jigsaw goes, okay, you wanted to live, you had the will to live, you escaped, and took him in, and he was working with him on more games. The Dr. Gordon working with Jigsaw, I just mind blown.
Yeah, it is funny that he cut off his foot, and yet it looks like he gained weight.
Okay, yes, he had a deficiency after that. He got on the top.
Yeah, I definitely saw the Chester Bennington death scene once or twice, but I never saw whichever one that was. I think it was like 7.
That was where the car ran over his head, right? Or
I want to say he was in a car. And
yeah, and I thought he was under.
And
or maybe he was in the car and it ripped off the woman's face. I mean, it's just out of control.
The car ripped off somebody's face.
Yeah, and that's the thing I really don't really care for it. Like, they show too much these days. You know, you watch Friday the 13th 1 and 2. The fear is the unknown. The fact that you don't see the killer, or you don't see them until the third act. With these, like, they just put the gore front and center, and sometimes you need to cut away right at that perfect moment. You know, hey Ted, where the hell's the corkscrew? And cleaver to the face, and then immediately cut away. You know, that can shock you way quicker than, you know, that the one guy that, you know, had to choose, you know, to stop spraying old girl that was in the freezer. You know, there's like, come on, man.
Yeah. It's true, and that's what I was telling Ariel about a 1974 movie that I was just watching, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. How they filmed it, still to this day, to me was incredible. And X and Pearl is a 2-movie series, that was filmed very much like that.
Very good, by the way. You should watch it.
But I will say, what intrigued me with Saw was the wanna play a game. How we can make these just sick ass games. I don't know. That's on my list too of groundbreaking original things. Now, after 10 movies, we've seen it, but I mean, I'll be 39 Monday, and Blair Witch scared the shit out of me. You have not seen when it came. It's stupid now, right? But when it came out,
we thought it was real.
They didn't have credits at the end. They just ended, and we found the police of Virginia found this footage. You had not seen that, so the excitement and the allure. No matter if it was a camera that was bouncing around half the time, and like you said, they didn't really show you blood and guts and gore because they only had $12 to make the entire movie. There was something about that, it being the first, and it intrigued you, and it scared me at whatever age I was, 20-something years ago, whenever it came out, you know?
It was brilliant marketing, both online and in print. You know, these kids just went into the woods and never came out. But then you saw all three of them at the VMAs.
VMAs! Oh my God, dude. When they came out at the VMAs, it was devastating to me. I go, just stay hidden, you bastards, with $1 million. Do not come out and ruin everything that I've made up in my mind about what happened.
And then they repeated the same formula like 7 years later or 9 years later with Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
And, you know, I saw that and I was like, you know what? That looks an awful lot like Blair Witch. And then I went and watched the movie and I was struck by two things. One, it is exactly like Blair Witch, except it's in a house instead of the woods. And also the main actress, Katie, I went to high school with her. So I was immediately taken out of it because I'm like, I know her. This ain't happening. This ain't actually happening.
No, that's on my list too. Have you ever seen Blair Witch 2?
I actually like Blair Witch 2 more than the first one.
Wow. Shout out to Blair Witch 2. The plot twist at the end had nothing to do with the first one whatsoever, but very good. And that leads me to something that's not on my list. Have you ever seen High Tension?
Is that with the dude that has to cross the wire between buildings? Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
High Tension, well, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, is the one about the woman that's being attacked the entire time. I believe it's a foreign movie. And come to find out she's the killer the whole time. I believe she has a chainsaw or something too. But a phenomenal movie.
Okay.
You're getting a birthday shout out. So Days X is actually our new drummer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wait, my ex?
No, Days X.
Oh, Dave. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I guarantee you, none of the women I've dated can play the drums for shit.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, good. So there won't be any lawsuits. That's good.
God. Oh shoot.
But yeah, I mean, and then note the most effed up ending to a movie, and I've still watched it multiple times, and actually have turned it off before the end of the movie, was The Mist by Stephen King.
Oh, what a great ending that was.
No.
That was the one time. That was the one time Stephen King actually said that the movie did his story better than he did.
It was just devastating after they all killed themselves and the mist clears and the military's there. You're going, that's effing me up pretty bad right now.
Oh yeah, that will definitely twist your dreams for the following 3 nights.
Yes.
But I mean, you as a human being, if you were in that particular position, what would you do? Would you kill yourself before anything would happen, or would you just wait it out? I mean,
I think I'm riding it out.
I think I'd ride it out.
Did y'all ever see the Mist TV show? Yeah, they did an entire. There was only one season because it wasn't very popular. But basically, in a separate side of town, a mall was engulfed by this mist, and they slowly descended into madness as well.
I want to say a few previews for it, but we never watched that one.
I mean, if you're down with like a WB version of the Mist, that's basically what it is. But it's decent.
Yeah. Did you watch The Strain?
I did not.
That was a series. That was it was kind of like based off of like a vampire / zombie apocalypse kind of scenario.
Very good.
It was actually really good. It started fading there towards the end, but they did a really great job at just the whole plot line, extending it, because you're like, oh, another vampire show, yay! But no, it actually was pretty good. Science fiction for sure.
Cinemax or HBO, I can't remember.
Sci-fi.
Oh, sci-fi.
I'm very selective with my vampire flicks. I must be honest.
You a Twilight guy?
Like the best vampire flick, in my opinion, is Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was not a great choice. Neither was Winona Ryder. But Gary Oldman just knocked it out of the park with Count Dracula.
Favorite zombie movie? Days X is 28 Days Later. Oh gosh, I feel like we've seen a lot of zombies.
But that cannot be. That's not actually a zombie. It's a plague. They're not actually zombies because they're still alive.
And as a zombie aficionado, hot sports opinion right here, zombie gangster as myself, they're not zombies because they can run faster than Tyreek Hill. I mean, like, what are they doing? There's no way you're a decroding zombie that's running 152 miles an hour and we can't escape. Get out of here.
Agreed. However, Return of the Living Dead had running zombies 15 years prior. So they didn't invent the whole genre.
Yeah. That was crazy. Another thing I have on here this was a few years ago. I'm going to say 35. Let's just go with 35. As a 35-year-old man, Ariel was gone one day. I'm sitting at the house and I decide to start scrolling for bootleg horror movies like I always do. And I found Hell House LLC. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And it is, I'm not going to boost it too much, but it scared me so much as an adult male that I had to turn on the lights.
He called me.
I had to turn on the freaking lights, dude. The first part of the movie is, and it's a shaky, hold the camera, blah, blah, blah. The middle scared the piss out of me. And then it ended janky too. But, oh my God, dude. The middle with this handheld camera I turned on the lights in my own home as a mid 30-year-old man.
I've seen the cover as I'm scrolling through, but I've never actually checked it out. I will check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will check that out. Have you checked out The Triangle?
That sounds familiar.
No, but I'm gonna write that down.
Okay, The Triangle. Imagine Groundhog's Day on a boat stuck in the Bermuda Triangle, where not only they're not reliving the same day, but there's a crew of people that board an abandoned ship, and then as they board, they look around and they see their boat full of them as they're boarding this abandoned boat. And basically, people have to die in order for everybody to escape. It's fascinating, and the Hemsworth, not Thor, the other Hemsworth is in it, and he's actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
We're gonna write that down. That reminds us a lot. It's a Netflix show.
There's a Netflix show, but it's also
It sounds exactly like
it's
that.
dubbed over a little bit, but the premise of it sounds just like that. But I don't think people have to die, but people are dying.
Yeah, and it's a parallel universe.
Yeah, parallel universe, kind of apocalyptic thing. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I wrote this down. Triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it came out 2009. Have y'all seen The Haunting of Hill House, the series?
Yes, I was watching it. I think Jeff trailed off on it.
Mm-hmm.
That actually that inspired a new term called fear vomit, because apparently when these spirits would show up in the haunted house just randomly, people would be so scared that they would vomit.
I want to say I tried to watch it and I fell off.
I did watch it. I remember it. I watched it all the way through. Didn't they make there's another series similar to that one?
Yeah, there's The Haunting of Bly Manor, but that's more of a gothic romance rather than a haunted house tale.
Yeah, I think I started the first episode of that, and
But basically, Haunting of Hill House is like Oculus, but stretched out into a series.
yeah, I thought it was pretty good. They did really good. The graphics on Homegirl every time.
And Mike Flanagan is a genius. You know, he did Dr. Sleep, and he did Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
He's a really fantastic storyteller. So anything that he makes, I will definitely watch.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen all of those.
So maybe my favorite horror movie of all time, and I've got to be on an island with this one, is Devil's Rejects. I love, and I wouldn't call it super horror, more than just
Disgusting,
sadistic. I hated House of a Thousand Corpses. I didn't like it at all, but Devil's Rejects and that epic opening scene where they're fighting it out, and the characters, Captain Spaulding and Sherry Moon, I don't know what the hell her name was in the movie, I've already forgot, but they're awesome, man. It was such a good movie, I thought, personally. Epic. 5 Flames.
Here are the Flames. Yeah, the other Midsommar. Have y'all seen Midsommar? I feel like we talked about that on another podcast.
yeah, that's basically Wicker Man.
Yep.
I don't remember liking Wicker Man, but Midsommar was such a sleeper. And when Homeboy dove off of the cliff and didn't die, that was an epic, disgusting scene too. And everybody was mad because he wasn't dead. He was trying to sacrifice himself, but all he ended up with was 1,000 broken bones sticking out of his body.
I didn't really care for Midsommar. However, I loved The Menu. I don't know if you saw The Menu. It came out recently. It's Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's basically a hoity-toity restaurateur, and he invites people onto this boat that only exclusive rich people can eat. But little by little, everybody doesn't get the order right, and so they have to die. And it's really hilarious and terrifying at the same time, especially for somebody that is acute to fine dining. But dude, Ray Fiennes, man, he is an untouted treasure. I love Ray Fiennes. I think he's a fantastic actor.
So let me say, oh, go ahead.
And I was also going to say Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic. She was in Split and The Witch. You know, she has these really expressive eyes and eyebrows that you know, they really are perfect for a suspenseful story, and I think she's a fantastic actress.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, all I was gonna say, I think that made my list too. As a horror fan in my soul, I cannot come to grips and tell you one, because I just looked up the menu, like you said, one horror movie that is comedy based too that I like. There's just something about it. It's oil and water to me. I just do not like comedy in
Like
my
Shaun
horror.
of the Dead.
Oh, Shaun of the Dead.
Zombieland.
I think that came out in high school for me, maybe. I can't remember. But people loved it. And that was the biggest controversy I think I had with my friends is I hated it. I do not like comedy in my horror.
That is too bad because there are some brilliant gems out there. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is wonderful. Cabin in the Woods is amazing. Even Army of Darkness.
Yeah. The Army of Darkness is the older one, right? With the skeletons.
Yeah, it came out
yes,
like 90.
Okay, I did like that, but I watched that when I was 9 or something. So
yeah, that's way more comedy than it is horror.
Yeah.
But the first Return of the Living Dead is also considered a horror comedy because it's very meta about talking shit about the punk rock movement that was happening at the time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm horror all the way, and to mix the two, I just can't jam with it for some reason. For the most part.
Where do you stand on Jason? Because let's be honest, part 6 is the one that's considered the best one, and that is clearly the funniest one.
I haven't watched it in a while, and I'll tell you, I went back and watched every single one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets again not too long ago, and the first one was still my favorite. And when he became a pop star icon, and they started making it funny, I really hated it.
Oh, damn, that's too bad. Because I love 3 and 4, Dream Warrior and Dream Master. I thought those were really cool as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
You know what movie that scared me as a kid? And I don't know why. There was just something. I think it was because we grew up with bubble TVs. Poltergeist actually scared the shit out of me.
Oh, dude, that clown under the bed.
Oh my God.
That was fucking terrifying.
One of the scariest scenes of all time.
And that's cool that we come full circle because Tobe Hooper, the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is the credited director for Poltergeist, even though we all know Steven Spielberg directed that.
But that's on the list. A couple notable hits here as a kid, because I'm 39. Nightmare on Elm Street scared the shit out of me. It, which I tried to watch about a year or so ago and was just disgusted by it, besides the nostalgia of feeling like I was young again. And then Candyman, when I was younger, was absolutely terrifying to me.
Oh, dude, bees in the mouth are terrifying regardless of how old you are.
Yes. What an iconic scene. Yep.
Yeah. To this day, Hank cannot watch the scene from Pet Sematary where the sister is all crippled and hobbled over in the bed and starts vomiting the pea soup. My brother, he's almost 40 and he cannot stomach that scene.
Wild. Yeah.
Which is crazy because the rest of that movie is actually pretty silly.
Yeah.
You got Herman Munster versus a little boy.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, bro, you're Frankenstein. You can take this kid.
Yep. And then a scene from a newer movie that still to this day I have to cover my eyes, even though it's, you said earlier, the perfect cutaway. Sinister was one of my favorite movies. And remember the lawnmower scene?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's just.
But you don't know that it's coming.
The
You're waiting,
anticipation.
and you're waiting. You're like, oh, now. And then boom, it hits. You're like, God, now.
It's a good 45 seconds of a lawnmower and a light until you see the dude's head. Yeah. Yep.
Shit.
Insane.
I was actually a bigger fan of The Conjuring.
I like The Conjuring.
The Conjuring was good. Very good.
And Insidious, Annabelle stuff. Anything that's kind of like a little bit of a true aspect to it somehow makes it a little bit more frightening.
I really don't like when there's a jump scare cue with a shriek of the violins or something when you're supposed to be scared.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're that's like telling a joke to somebody that's high. You know, that's cheating, in my opinion. You know, it's like when Mrs. McNeil was roaming around in the attic in Exorcist, and then just randomly her light flickered and shot flames, and there was nothing else except for the sound of the flames. That's terrifying. But when they put that fucking shriek, you know, where, oh shit, a cat just jumped out of the fucking bushes. After a certain point, it's like, man, that's fucking cliche, and I'm not really scared by that shit anymore.
Yeah. Well, I hate when like they do something like that, but you're expecting something scary and they're just closing a cabinet or something, and the cabinet gets me. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I'm so used to like the loud noises scaring me. It's like I'm triggered to do it now.
Excuse my pronunciation, James Wan. I don't know how to say it.
When?
But
James Wan.
Wan.
Okay.
Wan. I got it both wrong. So the king of it, in Insidious, I loved it, and I've loved most of the stuff they put out. But you want to talk about the king of that in his movies with the violin and the shrieks and all that extra production to really try to scare you. But like I said, I really liked Insidious and everything they've done with that series too. I don't think we've seen the new one.
No, I haven't seen the new one. I heard that it's kind of a letdown, but we'll see. I'm gonna watch it. But the Conjuring series is really good.
Oh yeah,
Insidious, the very first Insidious. I remember we watched it in theaters with, I think it was Brooke and Jenna, and they had that screechy violin, but it was on the words. And they did on the words the very first scene. And
there was a movie that came out recently. I want to say it was called Talk to Me, where you have to touch a dead hand, and then they fall back into like some kind of weird high where they're able to talk to dead people, and like you know, it's like a parlor trick, but then they get so stoned and high off of talking to this hand that they take too long, and then this one girl is just haunted by the spirits that live in this dead hand. I did not expect it to be as good as it was, and holy shit, the ending
don't tell
brought
us.
it full circle.
Hey, look,
I can't say it.
I ain't saying nothing.
It's Rotten Tomatoes said it's good, and the audience says it's good, so we're damn sure gonna watch it.
Dude, I'm telling you, 824 is making some amazing horror movies these days.
Yes, absolutely.
We've made that connection too because we've seen a lot of films.
Yeah.
they're doing a great job. I don't know how they're picking up on these films or what they're doing, but they're
Well,
good
it's
stuff.
Brad Pitt. He's got the ground floor, as far as hubbub. Yeah, but yeah, A24 and Blumhouse really are making some fantastic movies that people really need to check out because they're made at a fraction of the budget that all these bullshit superhero movies are doing, and they're making like 10 times what they're spending. And it's like, I wish movie companies would return to that. It's like, have a small budget, but then make sure that your product is good rather than throw 300 million into some bullshit that nobody cares about.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up A24 because that brings us back to X and Pearl, which are shot very much like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the very old Mia something or another. She's absolutely phenomenal in those roles.
She was a great crazy person.
Yes, she is phenomenal. And then I didn't know that they made this, and my list is so long, I was going to forget about it. Hereditary, man. Did you watch it?
I did, but as someone whose mother was mentally ill, it wasn't like scary so much as it was like depressing.
Yeah. The scene where the girl gets decapitated out the window was
that was fucked up. Good Lord,
my
fucked
God,
up.
dude. It really chilled me. It was just the emotion that the kid showed and everything that happened. It was shocking to the core.
Mm.
What's up, Johnny? It was nice to see you, Outlaw. Got a shout out to our friends over here.
Is Ricky taking a nap or something?
Nah, he's probably just chilling on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not famous, so he's not talking to us.
I figured he would have had an opinion on some like schlocky 80s horror.
Nope, guess not.
Yeah.
One more that's on my list. I think I've about burned through it. Have you seen The Ritual?
I don't know.
The Ritual is another deep woods group of friends go out there and they slowly lose their mind. It was very Blair Witchy, but a new age Blair Witch, which once again, to me, I had never heard of it. Nobody talked about it. So when I see a movie, I don't know if Ariel had talked to y'all about this. I judge it based on what it's supposed to be, which is sad because if you pump a movie up enough and I see 300, I don't know, the hell's the word I'm looking for, previews or whatever on it, I'm excited. You're showing me all the best stuff. But if I pick up some ding dong movie on whatever streaming service it is, and it's that hidden gem that really excites me that nobody knew about, or I don't know, I don't want to say it wasn't supposed to be good, but I didn't know about it. It excites me more. So I judge it on that B list of how good it is.
All right. Well, in that case, do not see any advertisements for The Triangle. Just watch it. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Because I feel like an advertisement would just fucking ruin it. So just pretend you heard it from word of mouth. Now,
we did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Now, the menu, you could actually watch the advertisement for that, and it won't give anything away, and it will still entice you. But the Triangle, there is no way they could advertise that without giving it away.
Okay. No, I agree with that. I sometimes will look and see if things have good ratings and just go off of that. And it is more exciting a lot of times not to know, because I feel as if some movies like you said, the previews give too much of it away. And if I go in and I'm thinking it's supposed to be this and it ends up being this, it actually is more appealing to me.
Yeah, that's why Roland Emmerich is brilliant, because he only showed you the White House being blown up on Independence Day on the advertisement. So you had to actually watch the movie to find out why the White House was blown up.
Yep. Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
and then you watch Independence Day and you're like, well, the first half is great and the second half sucks my dick.
Aliens.
Oh man.
Do y'all remember Aliens or Mars Attacks or something with the
Well, those are two completely different beasts, Ariel.
I know. I'm starting to get them mixed up, but do y'all remember them? I watched them when I was so young.
Absolutely. Aliens is brilliant. Mars Attacks, you really need to be high to enjoy that one.
That one was the wild one. Weird looking ones.
What's the one?
I will say, Jack Nicholson had a great line in that movie where it was, I think it was Sarah Jessica Parker was bitching about her station in life, and Jack Nicholson just turns to her and he goes, "You're an adult, just cope." And I say that is some of the most sage advice that anybody could possibly receive. It's like, shit sucks. Deal with it.
Bro, ain't no truer word. That was me the other week when I had a breakdown. I just kept going. Just going. Nobody had any idea what went on.
I'm intrigued by the Alien movies, and growing up when I did, I believe that they're all oblong-headed, long, skinny bastards. No One Will Save You is a new movie on Hulu that I thought was fantastic. Very old school, what we all think aliens are supposed to look like.
Tad creepier.
Spoiler alert, if you are a person that can't accept a movie with good acting that doesn't have dialogue, you're not going to like it. Don't waste your time. There is no talking in this movie, but I absolutely loved it.
There's a lot of screaming.
I like it already.
It's very good. Very good. And the girl from Booksmart is the main character. Like I said, I loved it. Very good alien movie.
I love a good alien movie.
Well,
folks,
wasn't that one the Gray or the Grays?
I think so.
Don't know, but I do apologize, but I've got to be at work early in the morning, so I'm gonna have to say goodnight. But hey, it's been fun talking with y'all about movies. I hope we get to do some more of that next week, where we'll have an entire panel of people talking about Texas-based movies, most especially horror-based movies, because it is the season. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having
me. Ariel, you're a treasure, and I thank you every week for being a part of this. Ricky, I know you got shit muted, but man, I love the shit out of you. I love all y'all, man. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Adios, amigos.